Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're welcoming back Seppy Yoon from Fightinabox. Seppy's latest zany campaign, Kaiser Cucumber's 3-night heist card game and role-playing game, is currently on Kickstarter. Seppy, welcome back to the binge. How you doing, my friend?
James, it's great to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you.
Thank you for the hair-raising tale of what you've been through today. For folks, everybody be nice to James. James has been through some stuff. I am just happy to be here. And I'm excited that you're going to come onto my show.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited.
It's going to be I'm pumped with it. Yeah, it's been a day. We'll talk about your show at the end because I want to make sure people are plugged into exactly how to get to that show. We're going to do that next week. Is it tomorrow? It's a week from now, right? Next week.
It's a week from now.
Yeah,
Yep.
next Wednesday.
A week from Wednesday.
We're going to spend a good hour talking about kind of what happens after the campaign. And
after the campaign.
Gosh, right before we went live here, we just cranked through 15 minutes like this, talked about our horror stories. So there's going to be lots of insights there. So hopefully everyone joins for that. I will drop
Everybody be nice to James. Be nice to James. Be nice to James.
I'll drop that at the end of this episode so people have that. So for those who don't know, Seppy's return to the podcast. I don't even have the last podcast number. That's the kind of day it is, but I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. But Seppy, for those who don't know who you are and what the heck Fightinabox is, can you give us kind of an overview?
We're a U.S. Twin Cities-based board game company. We've been doing this since 2013, and our big title, by size and probably critical acclaim, is Conquest Princess: Fashion is Power. And that got 1 game of the year and 2 top 10s for 2024, which is great for us. We're like,
wow,
woo!
Congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah, Board Game Co. liked it. The Hungry Gamer, that's where we got Game of the Year. I'm waiting for that trophy. Yeah, he has a trophy. Mark Dainty gave it a top 10, and Grant Lyon gave it a top 10. Otherwise, we're known for sort of irreverent themes matched with probably smarter than they should be mechanics.
Yeah. I would say that thematically, this is something that any campaign you've ever done, it just pulls me in. I was like, just the artwork and the theme. It's like one of these things where it's like, it's like this. Obviously, this comes out of this guy's dreams. Like he wakes up in the morning and he writes it down, like the craziest stuff he can think of. Because that is when I use the word zany in my intro. We're gonna get into some screenshots I'll show in a second, but like Kaiser Cucumber and things like this. I personally have Mouse Cat Cheese Cucumber, right?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned it. That the campaign we got going on is the 4th in that small box series.
Yeah.
And so do you have the fancy version or the small box version?
Small box version. I got a small box version.
So this will be the 4th in that series. Critics loved Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber, and and we're going to return to that world for not only the card game but the RPG, and that's sort of the shenanigans that ended up happening. With everything that's going on in the world, joy is a protest and creativity is inherently subversive. And so I am just encouraging people to find their joy. If you can say, I'm still happy in the face, but that's just me being a Cold War kid. If you can say that you're still happy despite all the other stuff, when your happiness is under attack, the worst thing you could do is surrender it. So that is why we're just gonna keep on doing what we're doing.
That's true. It's often looking for. I say to my wife about this. It's looking for the light, right? Like, what is it on a daily basis? Something that gives you joy or levity, right? Like, obviously, and we won't get into politics, but obviously the airways are just flooded with news, right? And like, how do you? Right. People are often talking about like, how can I separate myself from what's going on in the world and get just back to joy? And it's finding those moments, right? It's trying to find the things that give you the light.
And that is so critical for what you and I do, James. Yeah. Like from 2010 to 2020, the backbone of getting your crowdfund accelerated was done on social medias, right? And now the platforms have made themselves like this constant reminder of things that people just like, I need a break.
Yeah, people are disconnecting, right? And how does that impact you from an advertising standpoint when the way to get to people is through social media and people are disconnected?
Right. And so so that is like at the heart of this new campaign. And the new campaign has everything to do with trying to put people first and platforms second. The platforms have made it very clear that people who look like me or people who are like me are not like, any kind of priority or yeah, that they actively don't like me. So we're gonna reset it, James. We're gonna go back to the beginning of crowdfunding, and Zine Quest is going on. Have you ever done a Zine Quest?
No.
You're okay. So, Zine Quest is when the indie role-playing people get together and publish that small size. Original Dungeons and Dragons was done in that sort of 8.5 by 11 piece of
Yep.
paper folded in
Yeah. Yeah.
half. Like that's a zine,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so in Zine Quest goes back to those roots, and people are just publishing, and cross promoting everybody else's small zines. So we backed two Canadian zines already for Zine Quest. One of them is Horse Majeure, for
Oh, I
example,
love it.
James. In Horse Majeure, you role play two people in a horse costume. One is in the head and one is in the tail. And there's a GM, and the GM has hidden an apple somewhere on the field, and it's your job to find
Oh, that's
it.
awesome.
That's a $1 Canadian. Like, how could I just for the audacity of this, like, horse mature, like, yeah, you can have my Canadian dollar. Please take this immediately. And so we're just going out and if anybody else hears this and wants to go do this too, please just tell them that Kaiser Cucumber sent you. Like literally, that is all we're asking of all our fans or anybody else who's participating in the shenanigans. Or you can even say Tin Robot sent me.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
just let people know how we're connected. Because in a time like this, James, it is about building more bridges, or at least
Yeah.
making people realize that the bridges exist. Like talking to the light that you're saying.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can't see the light, but maybe you can follow like this path, and this path will. Oh, is that a dim haze out, or is just wishful thinking? Like that is sort of what we're doing. And so we're doing, yeah, that is like the major push instead of doing ad spend on the platforms because it's been very iffy,
Yeah.
right? If you don't have a game like Conquest Princess, which has a big tag, even then, right now, my guess is it's between $8 and $14 a conversion on Meta.
Yeah.
If you don't have a game that can afford that,
Or higher, quite frankly.
you should not. Yeah, or higher.
Yeah.
If you know your target market, like let's say your target market for this game might include women, then suddenly add 30% to that 8 to 14
Yeah.
dollars. Like it is
Yeah.
brutal. So it's not only high gamble, low rewards. It is also people who actively might not like you or trying to harm you, like giving them money. And so we're like, I can't do anything about that, but I can give people who are making games, Canadians making games about being in a horse costume, I can give that guy a buck. I can totally give that guy a
I'll take a
buck.
link after this show, after this podcast, because I'll throw this guy a buck as well. That sounds awesome. Being a Canadian
Like
myself,
seriously,
obviously, I want to support other Canadians. So,
yes. So we have in our link tree, we have all the zines that we are participating. Obviously, our own is on
yeah.
there, but all the rest of
So
those, yeah.
break this down because I've never heard of Zine Quest, and this sounds super cool. So, is this like a community? Is it on Reddit? Is it just individual publishers like
Yeah.
yourself, dude? Like, how does this thing flush
Yeah,
out?
it fleshes out because, and it's also cross-platform. So there are some going on in BackerKit, there's some other places,
Yeah.
and so it is just this time of the year where everybody who does these indie RPGs is like, hey, I'm going to do this for this
Got it.
event, and my offering is going to be like this. And so you see there's a lot of jadedness in the role play or the board game community about crowd
Yeah.
funds. Well, this brings new people to like small RPG indie zines and gets all the people who at least make them get excited about it. And so it's sort of, again, we're resetting ourselves back, hopefully to 2010,
I
where
love it.
people are like, I need a little joy. I need to do this. Like the first one we backed this year is called like Heavy Weighs the
Yeah.
Crown. And Heavy Weighs the Crown is like a solo RPG. Have you ever done any of those,
No.
James? There are a lot of ways to do this, but one of them is by journaling, like Thousand Year Old
Yep.
Vampires in this category, so on and whatnot. And in this, Heavy Weighs the Crown, it's built on the artifact engine, and so you're role playing and journaling as the crown.
Mm.
So you're following it with its unique qualities that you're giving it and how it plays out through the stories of the various monarchs or owners of the crown. And yeah, that was it's an easy joy. Like when people are doing something very different, it's easy to give them five
Yeah.
bucks, right?
Yeah, again, it's so easy. Like a dollar, even a dollar, right? Like it makes a big difference in
Yeah.
terms of algorithms and encouraging indie players to continue on. And as you said, it is so hard to break through. I've been at it for 6 years, right? And now I'm just now kind of feeling like maybe I'm breaking through ish, right? Like it is a grind, right? And so anything we can do to pay it
I
forward and help others, I think is important.
again into my be kind to James rhetoric. It is like I've been on a lot of places either talking about industry stuff or like talking about the
Sure.
campaign, but I feel like people, you and I think you're a little bit bigger than me at this point, especially with 11 titles. Um, uh, People in our size range who haven't quite
Yeah.
made it yet are going to feel it the worst. Like if you are one of the big indies, like leaders local to our area, they're on the 14th printing of Root
Yeah.
for Pete's sake, right?
They're
You
good.
know, like they aren't sold out at PAX Unplugged. You know, they're a big
Yeah.
indie, right? And then you have other people. If you have a crowd of a certain size, you will be less affected by this kind of stuff. But like small people who are still using the scaffolding of crowdfunding to get there, this will be brutal. This is going to be a brutal year for
Yeah.
us.
Has there been any thought to try some of the other platforms? Like, obviously, there's GameFound, which I think is more kind of
Did it?
focused towards minis. I didn't have great experience when I was on there. I mean, and it could have been just unique to what I was
You
launching.
got to be of a size. Like if you are a certain size, you can do great at GameFound. They also give you special
Yeah.
deals. They also give you augmented ad budget, all this kind
And
of
what about
stuff
like
to bring your
BackerKit?
audience
Like, because
over there.
BackerKit has their own platform as well. That's kind of like a Kickstarter thing. Have you looked at that one as well, or no?
Backer Kit's good if you were there early and you just stuck with it and built your
Mm.
audience. If you have an audience there, they give you some preferential treatment. You're big enough and so forth and whatnot. Yeah. And so unless like you have things like like this year I started having monthly meetings with Asia from Kickstarter. Like we're talking about the challenges of, queer people and people of
Yeah.
color on platforms and so forth and whatnot. And Asia's fantastic. Her cohort is Nicole. Hopefully I'll set up something with
Yeah.
them at Gamma. But at least having a face to talk to. Like that being said, like Luke from GameFound was my project manager. He was fantastic, and he's also part of the We're Not Wizards
Yeah.
podcast. And he was really, really kind to me. And all of those guys were really, really good. But as far as like, dollars and cents for our campaign, we were not big enough to take advantages of. And Princess is weird,
Yeah.
right? Like the game found people, if you are in the specific thing that the game found people like and in a way that they
D&D and
like,
things like
you
this.
will
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
better.
Exactly. Yeah.
You will do better. Where, like Princess is avant-garde. Like I'm really glad that Jamie Stegmaier had it as his favorite mechanic for the January first
Yeah.
year, first week of the year. So that was a real surprise. Jamie
He's good.
Stegmaier is a fan of Conquest Princess, which makes me like he's gone to BGG's, rated it. He's rated his number of plays. I'm like, yes, that's good. And so if you're looking for that, like where like games might be going kind of experience, we're really good for that. But um, I talk to people about this all the time. Like Conquest Princess is invisible to somebody walking into a game
Yeah.
store. And the reason that it is invisible, not because it's not an 8 pound purple box, it's because it doesn't look like anything else. And we train our brains to be attracted to things that we know. And if something is too unique, like a game about using fashion and friendship to overcome galactic tyranny, then instead of people going, "What is this?" they just don't see it at all.
Yeah. I find that in general, even with, and I think on that game you're lucky with the reviewers, right? Because the reviewers are very complimentary. I've seen cases where if there's a unique mechanic or someone's trying something different and saying, "How can I break the mold?" and kind of add something to the, and that's what I'm a fan of. What can I add to the industry, right? In terms of in a game, I don't want to fit just exactly in the kind of in the square boxes that have been established. I want to try to come up with a new thing that adds incrementally to the industry. But from my experience, you typically get punished for that by reviewers.
You do,
right?
You
so
do.
Reviewers are like, well, I can't really put my finger on what this game is. It's not. It's kind of like worker placement ish, but it's not really worker. It's like instead of celebrating that, it's almost like it's reviewed in a negative light.
I have a lot of sympathy for and compassion for everybody in our industry as much as possible. And reviewers are under a certain deadline of things, right? Like they might only get X number of playthroughs, or they get your rule book and they have 3 hours with it, right? And like first impressions are very different than if you really find yourself captivated by this. My perfect example of this for Kaiser Cucumbers and the Gangs of Mechanical Corners is the difference between Board Game Co's, who liked it, and Secret Cabal Don, who really liked it. And they both came to the exact same moment with the game, and then one veered one way, having played it more, and one veered the other way, having played it less. And I would definitely look at the two of those. It's a really interesting but I got, and probably the difference is I got to run the game for Don at PAX Unplugged, where I did not. I did. I got to play with Alex, but it was Don got a much more curated situation, and then boom, 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 boom. And so, reviewers don't get as much time with it, and so when things don't get a lot of time with stuff, things can fall through the cracks. I got a really the only uncomplimentary review for Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber came from Dice Tower, because their guy said, "Hey, I gotta get time to play this," and whatever it is, and they did not have enough time for it, and so they're like, "What is going on with this game? What?" And so that newness thing that you're talking about, they were like, "Whoa!" It just caused their brain to seize up because it was too new. It was
and it's kind of thing where it's like, maybe innovation is good if it's done in increments, right? At least you'll have least resistance, I guess, to new ideas if it's an incremental change versus trying something completely new. But I constantly go back to, when Settlers of Catan came out, right? And how groundbreaking that was, right? Versus kind of everything else that was out there. And, or the first time, Dominion with deck building, right? The whole deck building concept. And that, that's now a core mechanic that's in thousands of games, right? But someone had to do it the first time, and I'm thinking back to that time where someone's probably like, "What the hell? What is this? I don't get it," right? And it's these kind of things. I think that as people get more experience with it, then maybe they'll become more familiar and maybe will get adopted. But you have to be willing to go through those pains, right?
You do, and like everything, things come into our view probably, or our timeline, a lot later than they actually showed up. Like there's been decades of work. Like for Princess, I worked on that for 9 years, right? And the reviewers got to see it 2 years even before the campaign started, and so forth and on. So I even had to, it was so new, I had to refine a teach and put a tutorial on top of it to build those kind of stepping stone and bridges to make it happen. But we talk about Catan. Catan lifts its core mechanisms from a game called Civilization from 1970 something or another. That game is a very 70s I've sat down and played it twice. It's like a 13-hour game. Everything you do in the game has a 2-page spread of just solid text. But in one of those 2-page sections is actually all the core mechanisms from Settlers of Catan.
So sometimes it's imitation is the best form of flattery, I guess, right?
Or less is more, or refinement, good ideas. A new idea might not be the right thing, but a refinement of an idea. I'm really sure that somebody, after I'm dead, will look at my games and go, "Huh, these are some sizzle here."
Oh, I'm sure even before you're dead. Again, I can't count the number of times I'm playing a game on game night, and I have a local meetup that I go to, and I make it my goal to play at least one game I've never played every single week, right? And
Right.
I'm constantly making little notes of like, ooh, that's an interesting little idea there. I could probably adopt that in this other thing I'm working on here. So it's always everything that we're building now is on the backs of what came before, right? And it's just
It does.
throwing it in a blender and remixing it and throwing different themes on it is kind of how these new iterations are born. Uh,
And more people doing it and more people playing it means more
yeah,
refinement, right? And like games are like what our phones are like been like. They're becoming easier to
yeah,
use, faster. You get to the core fun quicker.
yeah, better shorthand and
Like,
things like that as
yeah,
well,
all these
right?
things. Yeah, and the people who like these kinds of games, they're becoming more skilled. So it takes less time to get them on board with the mechanic. You mean I don't like roll a die and I have to move the shoe? No, that's not what we're doing here. Like that is
So speaking of mechanisms and mechanics, so Three Night Heist. I don't want to lose track of
Three
this
Night Heist.
because I mean this is your current campaign. Again, I love the artwork. The artwork is just so fun, and I can see in the. So first, I want you to explain the difference because there's two games here. There's a role playing game, and then
There
there's
is.
the heist, which has very similar vibe to Mouse Cat Cheese Cucumber. I think if people have played that one, where you've got these central kind of tiled cards, but when I was watching some of the reviews of this, again, it got me thinking like, how do these guys come up with the mechanisms of this, like with that central cat? Like, was this born as something else, or did you guys just come up with this? Because it seems kind of unique to me, the way
Uh,
you've kind of
it,
approached
it-
it, right?
um, well, with the small box series, we're like, hey, you've got 36 cards. What do you want to do? That's like to be in the small box series, you got to be 36 cards or less, and all of the 88 millimeter
Yeah.
squares. First of all, so I think boundaries are good, and in this game, Squirrel or Die is combat memory, so we're doing a mechanism for
Mm.
that. Okay. Hedgehog Hop, which is the second in the series, is combos and area control. Okay, with that same thing. The third one is asymmetric mysteries and maze building. Okay, and so for this fourth one, it is we're going to explore stack and we're going to explore changing dynamic board changing
Mm.
states. And so in it, you are playing one of the four masterminds. It's again asymmetrical. You all want to do the same thing, but in very different ways. Okay. So you have a set of agents, James. Those agents you want to sneak into the vault and get the loot. Okay. But you have a rival team who you want to send to jail. And everybody else you want to make sure stays on the street, stays out of the action. And how this plays out is we have a central bunny bobby in the first round, and then we'll add bunny bobbies as we go along. And you're going to add tiles around the bunny bobbies because they're protecting the loot. Okay. Well, you can either play them face down, and if they're face down at the end of the round, they'll sneak in and grab the loot, which is worth the
Yeah.
most points. But conversely, you can play the agents face up, and if you play them face up, you actually get to use their special abilities.
But
And
then you know where they
so,
are, right?
how the board, yes, but you know where they are, and they're likely to get caught at the end of the round. So you are end up like putting on the board other people's agents, hoping they get caught, while you can do other things like hide agents, flip agents, move the board around, and you're trying to, like a mastermind, set up these situations where you're baiting other players who don't know who you are to try to help you out, where everything you do helps everybody at least a little, right? And you're just trying to help yourself more and try to get that big change around. And so this is the first of our titles where I was not the first person to put forward the idea. This was actually put forward by my co-writer from Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber and Conquest Princess. Patrick actually is a huge fan of Fight in a Box games and the games that I specifically wrote just by
Yeah.
myself. And he came forward to my creative director because he's sneaky, and he's like, "Hey, I got this game. Do you think Seppy will like it?" And it is really a weird love letter to all the weird mechanics in Fight in a Box games prior to this game.
Got it.
And so it has like scoring, like processing. It has card moving, like Hedgehog Hop and Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber. It has the asymmetry and mystery of Mouse Cheese Cat Cucumber. There's a lot. The only thing it doesn't have the princess mechanics in it because princess mechanics require 8 pounds of stuff. But every other game is represented there. And when he did it, I was like, oh my gosh. I feel seen in all the best ways, but this is still wrong. We got to fix it. And so we ended up being co-designers for this. And so that is how this particular game got out from the dream state to the reality. So that touches on like how it gets made, the iterations, and
Yeah,
that kind
it's
of stuff.
super cool.
So yeah.
And then in terms of the so who's your artist on this? Because I love these characters. They're so cool.
Our creative director, Mark, is our
Oh,
illustrator for this one. He's solo on this one. Sometimes he gets Graham Judd to help out with extra stuff, like Princess Zero was a
yeah,
comic book
yeah.
of Graham Judd. But Mark does all these characters and also did the video and also did the majority of the writing for the RPG and then all the
And do you
character
guys have
design for
like
that as well.
swag? Like, cause I like, is there shirts and things like you gotta have the stuff on a shirt? No, like,
Do I? James, maybe you should run my company because I don't like, we never do that because we do like collector's editions of games. Occasionally
oh
we do
boy,
pins. I sell
you got t-shirts.
t-shirts
Do you have Kaiser
once
Cucumber
every 2
t-shirts?
years.
That's my question. I need a Kaiser
Not
Cucumbers
yet. Once
t-shirt.
every,
I have to have one.
you do. I need to make one just for you, James. Just to improve your day, James. I want you to have
Oh,
this
but
t-shirt.
we gotta connect you with some of these print on demand guys because like the characters are
That's
so
probably a good
cool. Like
idea.
the Kaiser Cucumber, that alone, I could see that character on a shirt.
All right. Let's talk about the character design for Kaiser Cucumber. So there is a type of heirloom cucumber called Kaiser Alexander cucumbers. Okay. And the weird Prussian helmet in German is called a Pico
Yeah.
Auber, which means pickle helmet. So we have a pickle wearing a pickle helmet who is a pickle, like a
Oh, I
cucumber,
love it.
like an
I'm
heirloom
trying to find an
cucumber.
image here to show
And
people. There it is right there. Oh, he's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. So Kaiser Cucumber is great. We actually did a comic strip with him, which was half Inside Out, half silent movie, where the fight fans voted which aspect of Kaiser Cucumber we were going to follow every week. So, you know, the lover, the
Yeah.
fighter, the mastermind, the cultist, and the warrior. And so they all had different suggestions on how to solve the crime or do some ne'er do well. And so the internal back and forth was the comic strip, but then anything that was out in the real world, which was in Mechanical Corners, was sepia toned black and white movie.
Oh my god, it's
And
so good.
so
It's so good.
our most exciting thing about that is we actually did an art
Yeah.
novella for that. It was, yeah, and so that we only made 70 copies of that. We sealed them in butcher's paper, twine, and wax
Oh,
sealed
that's
them.
cool.
And right now we are on our YouTube channel. We are reading out like they've been like hidden for 5 years. The majority of people had not opened their copy. Like it's wax sealed. I'm not doing. I'm like, oh, it killed me, James. I'm like, I made this cool experience. Go on the experience. I'm like, no, the wax
They
seal.
want to
I'm never
break it so
breaking
that it retains its value. I love it. Meanwhile, the moths are doing their work.
Yeah, and we only made 70 of them. They're all hand numbered, hand signed, and the majority of them are steel sealed up. And so we're reading, we broke one open and we're doing a video like read through of
Oh, that's
this
fantastic.
right now in a way to try to again break the cycle of like so many Kickstarters are trying to get you to come back to buy more and all this kind of stuff. And we're just like, no.
Yeah.
Like right now, we need to build bridges and show people where light is, and that they could come to a place where gamers
Yeah.
are, and not feel like they have anything on their mind but ridiculous Prussian cucumbers.
So talk to me about the RPG. I don't want to lose sight of the RPG because that's another chunkier campaign. Like I was watching some like 4-hour RPG playthroughs you guys were doing. Like
Yeah. All right. So do you know who Ed Greenwood
don't
is,
know.
James? He is the author of Forgotten Realms, one of the biggest worlds of
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so he looks like a wizard now. And then Eric Scott to be who writes the novels in the Forgotten Realms, like he's a novelist who does the fantasy novels
Yeah.
in that realm. We got them both to play it, and they love the game. Um, in it, it's a cozy steampunk heist. So in Mechanical Corners, there aren't guns, there are bananas, there are no humans. Horses are mythical like dragons. Like there's a whole bunch of
Sure.
wacky stuff going on. And so you're getting together. So you make your character. Here's a character sheet example, a little tiny
Okay, yeah.
character sheet. And you have stats which are in antithesis to each other. Like, for example, you have bold versus clever. No, bold versus careful, clever versus practical, and sturdy versus swift. Okay. And so using those really broad terms, so you could have a bold mouse and he uses dynamite to blow up in the safe, right? So instead of strength, you were using boldness, like how a character acts. And so that's one
Yeah.
of the flavors of it. And there are a lot of games, indies, that do that kind of thing. If you're looking for like how are role-playing games different than Dungeons and Dragons and how can they be easier than Dungeons and Dragons, this is the whole character sheet. Like they can be very easy comparatively. But the funny thing about this game is one person narrates the ending. Like the usual suspects, like Kaiser Soze, like
Yeah.
at the end, walking away with all the loot. One player gets to narrate the ending, or it could be the DM. So you're going to do a skill check, James, and to like sneak past the guards. And I am going to throw a rock to distract them to help you out. Well, if you accept my help as the player who was sneaking, then I get a card from the mouse cheese deck. Okay. So it incorporates the game for Mouse Cheese
Yeah.
Tech Cucumber. So I get a card. All right. So anytime you help somebody else, you can take a card from the Mouse Cheese deck. Anytime you refuse help, the game master gets a card. And at the end of the day, we all reveal the number of cogs on our Mouse Cheese cards. And the one who has the most cogs of a certain color, and it could be the GM, gets to narrate the ending. And the GM could narrate, you all get caught, you're terrible people. Or I could narrate, hey, we're all in it together. Or you could narrate your own ending where you're like, hey, I took the loot and then everybody else is out to dry and they go to jail. Like you could
Oh,
do
that's
whatever you
awesome.
want. So somebody wins the right by helping others. It's a little passive aggressive. By being the most helpful, you get to help yourself at the end of the RPG. And so it is a hoot. It's a very different mechanic. It uses the game itself. We're really proud of it. It's people love it,
No, it's super
and
cool.
we did an entire make your character and play the adventure in 2 hours with Hungry Gamer Will, Tabletop Rebellion, and Level Up Lena. And we did a whole adventure in 2 hours, which is crazy.
So where are you going from? Like where? So what's next? So after this campaign's done, are you working on more fight in a box type games, or are you
Yeah.
going in another kind of Conquest Princess direction? Like where are you going from here? Like kind of what's the next plan?
Because I make indie games and the universe is cruel. I had to pick up another job, so you'll see me doing a lot of Floodgate. Like if you go to any of this stuff, you're gonna see me do Floodgate adjacent
Okay.
stuff. So I'm helping out there, helping with the narrative of games and evergreens there. I'm very proud of that. That stuff is very exciting. Ben is a great person. They're also local to Twin Cities. So you're gonna see that, so don't freak out. But for us, we are probably zooming in on princess content
Mm,
mid-year. We started on the second expansion to Princess. The first one was Night of the Necropede, and the second one, which is for the four final missions that you can play out of the standard box, is called Conquest Princess: The Fashion Menace. And the Fashion Menace is coming. We started testing the first scenario from that one, which is called the Critical Mass Effect. And the Critical Mass Effect tested really well in Protospiel. So maybe if we like these combined Kickstarters, we might do the Princess RPG and the uh, the next expansion for Conquest Princess together because like the Princess RPG, our real big thing about that right now is trying to figure out how much of the mechanics from or like how many of the physical objects from the actual game you would need from Princess to make it feel good while still making it
yeah.
approachable to indies. Like indies don't want to have
Yeah.
stuff, right? They don't want any specialized items to role play. Like role playing is the barriers for shelf space and dollar is way lower than board games. Just way, way, way lower than board
Yeah.
games. And that's part of the zine. But still, I mean, the bag building is really like a role playing game. Bag building really gets to the core fun of Dread. Have you played the Dread role playing game,
I haven't. No.
James? The pure creativity of this is amazing. So it's role playing, pretend Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of rolling dice, you pull blocks from a Jenga tower. If the Jenga tower ever collapses, your character
Oh
dies.
boy.
It is so good. Obviously, if somebody has like mobility issues or dexterity issues, that game's not approachable with them. But if everybody's like on board with this specific flavor of fun, it creates a role-playing experience. Like you can see somebody's playing Dread at a convention because everybody is 3 feet from the table. No one is near the table. Because if you accidentally knock the tower down,
you kill everyone.
Your character.
Oh, your character dies. Got it.
Your character dies, James.
Oh, that's amazing.
So think about these mechanics. Like in Jenga is super approachable, and role playing, right, has become more common. Like Dread is a crazy game, and Dread is great. Dread is great. So, but in the same way, the bag building in Princess gets that core fun that isn't Dread.
For those who want to follow your campaign, check it out. I encourage them to do so. And at the very least, I'm going to try to convince Seppy to put some kind of a shirt offer on his page before this campaign's done. That is my mission this week. But for those who want to check this out,
mine is be nice to James. Everybody should be nice to
I'm
James.
going to put a link in the show notes to your campaign page. I want people to check it out. You're already funded, so it's not a question of this. It is moving forward.
Yeah, it was 6.5 hours.
So
it was good.
It's moving forward. So to check out the campaign. Also, this whole Zine Quest. I want to get links from Seppy on this. If it's linked or whatever, we're going to put that in the show notes as well because I want people to check that out. That sounds super cool. The more as a community we can rally around.
Give Canadian game designers a buck.
Yeah, let's help even independents, right? Let's help people who are trying to get started and get into this industry. It's never too late to get into the industry, and I encourage everyone to do their best to put their ideas forward. So, Seppy, I want to wish you all the best, my friend, in this coming year.
Thank you.
For those who want to check out our live we're doing next week on TikTok Live, Seppy and I are getting together at what time?
It is 4 Eastern,
4 o'clock
3
Eastern
Central.
time. Okay, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time next Wednesday.
So
that date is, I think, the 18th.
James, you're doing great. You're
is
doing
it the 18th? It's 19th, I think, right? 19th?
Because
my campaign launches the 18th.
Yeah, 19th. Okay, yes, 19th.
So please join us February 19th at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on TikTok. And the TikTok handle, Seppy, is what?
Fightinabox. I'm Fightinabox everywhere.
Fightinabox. You'll be able to find it. I'll try to figure out how to put a link to that in the show notes as well. But join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to go under the hood and really get into kind of after the campaign stuff. So people
after the campaign, you and I, like, we're going to talk about after the campaign. Because, like improving your process, like, what does that mean and what risks you're doing? Yeah. Like, paying for peace of mind, you are paying for it. So, like, what has, like, how to spend your energy, how to spend your dollars, like innovating that. Like, James, you have a lot to share in this area.
We're going to go through it all. So please join us live next week. Seppy, all the best, my friend. We'll get you back on with the next iteration of Conquest Princess.
Woohoo!
Take care, buddy. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.